So you just bought a car. What's the first thing you should check? Think about it. You find a steal of a deal online. The car looks mint and the price is unbeatable. You're already picturing yourself behind the wheel. But is it too good to be true? Over the years, we've built a reputation here at Fluid Motor Union for being the go-to guys when things start to get complicated. From your everyday commuter to high-end exotics, we've seen it all and fixed it all. This reputation has brought us repair jobs and consultation requests from every corner of the country, and yes, even from YouTube influencers. One of those influencers, none other than ScamCrac. Sam and I have traded ideas on cars, YouTube life, and politics. It's always a good time when we talk. But here's the thing. While our shop thrives on content as part of our business, content creators like Sam are constantly on the hunt for the next perfect topic vehicle. And what does that mean? It means buying a car that might be more drama than a deal. Because let's face it, drama gets the views. Samcrac recently picked up what looked like a pristine 2009 C6 Z06 Corvette from an online auction in Indiana, right in our backyard, compared to Sam, who's down in Florida. It seemed like he'd struck gold, but there was one glaring issue. The seller dealer claims the clutch was damaged by the transporter who came to pick it up, but the problem described as a clutch pedal sticking to the floor. Now, that's a bit strange. A clutch pedal sticking might not be a clutch issue at all. It could be a problem with the hydraulic system. But you know we're gonna get to the bottom of this in our complete digital inspection. Heck, if the situation calls for it, we might even handle some of the work ourselves to make sure this car is ready for its life down in Florida. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, hit the bell to make sure you don't miss any of our weekly fresh content. I'm sure many of you have bought a car from auction or know someone who has, so share this with them. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below what you think made this C6 undrivable. What kind of issues do you think we'll uncover on this episode of Inspected, Influencer Edition? Let's get into it. So I got a call from Sam who needed help with the car he picked up from an auction in Indiana. I knew just the guys to help get it back to the shop. Big shout out to Clifford's Towing in Plainfield for always coming through.
I'm thrilled that you have the car at this point. That's all.
It's here. It looks pretty good, to be honest.
Now the car rolls into the shop and Sam starts telling me about his 2008 Z06 Corvette, which had a sky-high auction rating, but it wasn't exactly shaping up to be the prize he'd hoped for. I won't spoil all the details, that's Sam's story to tell, but let's just say things got interesting when his transporter tried to pick it up and, well, it didn't exactly drive itself onto the truck. Dead battery, mysterious clutch failure, the whole situation felt off. But Sam got that spidey sense for auction drama, and he knew he had to check it out before the buyback window closed. Which was odd because at first glance, this thing looked like a real winner. From the outside, it was surprisingly in great shape. The paint was clean, no major dings or scratches, and it looked like someone had really taken care of it. But here's the thing. It had an unmistakable vibe of a track toy. You know the type, looks clean, but you can just tell it's been pushed hard on the weekends. Probably saw a few too many laps at the track during its lifetime. So he puts his trust in us, even from a state away, and of course, I call out the big guns, my top tech, Keller. Honestly, if the world went Mad Max tomorrow, Keller and I would be fixing cars with nothing but duct tape and wrenches. Usually we save our combined powers for the trickiest of jobs, but this Z06 was begging for our attention. Time to see what's really going on and get this thing up on a lift.
This looks like a nice little track toy. It's got the world's fastest track wear and tires on there.
I think they are good for the track, bro.
So they're not good for anything else. I feel like they wear faster than anything I've ever seen. I always see these like inside bar wear, which, yep, especially the rear. The bin.
What's it ended?
What's it ended?
110135.
The fuck? What is this? You ever see this tag before? Canadian certification
No.
label. This isn't a Canadian tag. This vehicle has been altered to conform, it's hard to read, all applicable standards prescribed under the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Regulations. So was this car like brought from America to Canada? Because it's an '09.
Maybe. I know they have like different laws for like daytime running lights and
So this must be
little
like
other
a
stuff.
So it was brought from here to Canada and back over? That's neat. I remember these things used to come in here in the shop in like '10, and I was thinking they were kind of cool. But pretty soon I just felt like every other Corvette, they're all... It's missing the covers or something. Maybe it's got some aftermarket shit. I don't know, maybe because it has those covers that it says LS7 on them, so it just looks weird. This looks weird though. Something seems off. Looks pretty clean otherwise.
The manifold looks kind of tall.
For a vet? Yeah, it does. They usually have flat manifolds. Like this one's curved. And
Yeah.
it looks small too. Like it's a 7-liter motor. That was the big deal. The LS7, 505 naturally aspirated horsepower. Like, yeah, this car might be modified, but something seems weird here.
Maybe he blew up his manifold and put a normal one on there.
Or it's ported or some garbage.
The exhaust manifold bolts are like not rusty.
At all. It's got 40,000 miles on it? Well, I mean,
Sure looks older.
these are track toys, so maybe it's fine. I don't know. Let's put it up. What I would like to find out, though, is if this thing starts up. It actually sounds really nice.
Oh, sounds like a Corvette.
No crazy lights on the dash. Got a tire pressure monitor and a brake. This thing had a completely dead battery, so I'm surprised there isn't more faults on there, but sounds pretty good. Starts up good. What's the mileage on this thing again?
39,000.
It's like for 40,000 miles, there's a lot of things that look really, really good, and then there's a lot of really questionably clean things as well, which obviously makes sense with the engine, but
Yeah, it's like half new and half dirty.
which is weird. It's not the typical condition I see these cars come in, especially if they're track or they're a garage queen. I mean, maybe this was a blend of both. But this front bumper looks really good. I can't tell if it looks good enough that it got repainted
My front bumper.
or good enough that it's been kept original, but you wouldn't think it's been kept original. The bumper looks really good. It looks super clean, but you'd think that track cars, they're getting rock chips on it, they're getting stuff thrown at it, they're going into the gravel. So was it repainted? Was it, like what's going on there? He did mention on the history report that the right rear had some sort of incident listed on it, but other than the bumper being redone, I don't see anything that would lead me to believe anything serious happened. All the control arms look like they had the same amount of surface oxidation on them. There isn't a big difference between the two sides, so they look about the same amount of dust and age on them. Brakes, same thing. Typically, if you slide into a curb or get in an accident on one side of the car, you have to replace a knuckle or something. Everything looks to be matching for the other side, as far as I could tell. So either this happened very, very early in its life and stuff got replaced and it's just had time to age, or whatever happened was small, or maybe it happened in the rear in that bumper area that we see with the refinished bumper, that rear section that got replaced. Maybe something having to do with that, but I don't see any obvious signs of a rear right accident, at least in the suspension. It's got some sort of pulley on here. Modified.
Like, look at the front rotors compare to the rear.
Fluid damper.
Maybe that's.
Or maybe the rears.
I mean, that's what track guys do. They put solid rotors on it.
This is all Z06 like shocks and stuff. This engine looks really clean. All right, they had a weird clutch line at the top. I want to see where it went. This guy here.
Was it like for the remote bleeder?
I was thinking it had a remote bleeder, but maybe that's what happened. Maybe it's just got air in it, you know? Why would it get air in it and be okay? Or maybe something broke, I don't know. I don't see any leaks. Now here's the problem with the clutch. Now watch what happens when I press it to the floor. Just gonna put the lightest of effort on it, and it's down, gone. So usually that's a sign of a hydraulic issue. And with this thing having a remote bleeder, I bet that has something to do with it, but again, we're not gonna touch that. A concerning thing, like I said, this remote bleeder here, it helps when you're having issues, maybe at the track, you got heat built up into the clutch fluid, or you're doing something back there. You don't have to crawl up underneath the car, try to get the clutch bled. So that's a common aftermarket modification. Brake fluid looks great. This clutch fluid's not looking that good, which is...
Oh, that's older than the car.
Like, I don't even have a good reason as to why that would be like that.
Yeah, that's more than old.
I mean, you'd think it would be cleaner just putting the line on.
Yeah.
Like, that whole process, you'd have enough fluid in there to be clean.
The pan's been off recently.
What are you seeing?
Oh, every bolt on the pan's been off.
So this is a good one. You could tell that the bolts have marks on them. We usually look at stuff like that when we see something really clean, just to kind of know what history this car's had. So if we see that, we think to ourselves, oh, this is really clean. Got marks in the bolts. Someone just did an oil pan. But hard to know. We're looking at everything, obviously, trying to figure out if this is a good car for Sam or not. It's an aluminum block. That's good.
Yeah, there's not even like surface rust on the pressure plate.
Really?
Yeah, like usually you look through there and it's
Well, maybe he's
brown.
been... Well, especially if we've got a clutch issue, right? Oh, wow. That thing looks fresh. Huh. Like, new clutch is fine, but maybe they didn't bleed it, or... This is weird.
I don't know, that'd be the easiest part of the job for
Like,
doing
to
a
finish
clutch
it,
on this car.
especially with the remote bleeder. Tires are wasted, like I said before. Expected with the track car. Inside edge gone. Especially with the angles they run on the alignment. A lot of guys like to lower these for the track, but then they don't do the proper alignments because you run out of room. But you can get the car to handle a little better even with the limits that it's at. But I think you've got to get some corrective hardware in order to get the alignment back in after you lower it. And a lot of guys just leave it alone. What's this?
Calipers are really clean.
What's this?
Duct tape boot?
The old duct tape mod. Oh, it's kind of like thermal tape, so maybe it just protects the boot from heating up with the brakes. What are the chances that that weld there's factory? See it steps and starts? It's like, it's really nicely done. You think Chevy's grinding their welds?
No, I mean, that I might say is okay, because I know I've seen it like on the car where you lift it up. Welds like that, but they're not going to grind them down.
So something happened in the rear end of this car.
Yeah.
Sam would like to know about that. That's definitely something that wasn't advertised. I want to bleed this thing, but I'm kind of suspect of that engine. I want to like check the stamping or the codes. I put a magnet on it just to see if something was weird with the black, you know? Like it wasn't aluminum. It's aluminum, but I'll just check the head codes. Like, just see
Yeah,
if
does it have a different cam or something? It looks like the front cover's been off too.
the front cover, and I mean, I guess if it wouldn't be weird to put a pulley on here, you know? It's aftermarket, but that manifold, like, I know a fair amount about LS manifolds. I don't know of anybody putting smaller manifolds on these cars. Like, what is the performance benefit of that? That's kind of weird. It looks smaller to me, and it looks, like you said, taller as well. They have like the cylinder head codes that tell you what they're off of. This one's 0821. Let's ask Google, the best tech. Let me verify that. LS3. What would be the reason to put LS3 heads on your LS7? Because they have like a valve train upgrade. So that seems like a big step backwards. Especially that manifold, I'm certain is an LS3 manifold. Yeah, the LS7 one, dude, it's flat. This looks like it's way higher. Here, look at this. Like, look, it's got these bars that run here. And that throttle looks small too.
Flatter.
Like, look how low that is. I mean, it's hard to tell from here, but you could see that, like, from that angle, it looks way flatter. This one curves up. Why would you put, I think it's an LS3. Like, how many LS3s do we have in here? Like, the one we did for the Buick?
No, trucks are way taller.
That looks like LS3 heads and an LS3 manifold, which, even if you're doing some crazy, like, upgrade, why would you put that, like, go through the trouble of doing that? I mean, I guess we're going to have to find the number on the block to be sure, but, I mean, already you don't have what this car should have. If I had a Z06 that I paid the money for, and it didn't have an LS3, or it didn't have an LS7 head and manifold, I'd want my money back.
Somebody took the Z06 out of it.
Oh, this is so confusing. That throttle looks small, though. If it's got head studs, that means they were this thing at least had the head off. There's some sort of short block operation going on here. Ugh. What a pain in the butt.
Yeah, let's find the number on the block.
If we have a number on the block, I guess that might make it acceptable, but I don't know, man. Let me find out where it's at. So we know something's up with the head and the intake manifold. Really, the only saving grace here would be finding it actually being an LS7 engine block, and then maybe it could be argued that some sort of aftermarket build was done on the car, but we're 2 strikes and 1 strike left of telling Sam to take this thing back.
Up
Up 6.2. We're missing 8 liters, 0.8 liters. It'd be good for most cars unless your car originally had a 7.0 into it, which this car did, unfortunately, which means this is some sort of bait and switch that Sam is unfortunately caught up in, and we're gonna have to let him know. So rather than trying to figure out anything else on this car, we're probably gonna stop and let him know, get him involved, and see kind of what's going on. So the inspection report's back, Sam, and I gotta say, I don't know, given the circumstances, if it's going to be shocking, but I bet, it's stuff we could have expected. Your guard was pretty much up on this thing before we started.
It was.
And you'd mentioned some things to me to watch out for, which, believe it or not, I haven't ran into, but, you are the guy that deals with auction cars more than I do. So you'd probably deal more with people getting, can we say scammed? Is that fair, or is that too harsh?
It's funny because it's fair and not. The auction I bought this car from, typically you don't get scammed, especially not on something like this that was graded so well. Yeah, the car was graded a 4.7, and just in these photos that you took in your report, the thing looks great from the outside. If you never had to open the hood, it looks amazing.
No, it looks like a Z06, a light track wear type of build that, maybe an owner took it to the track a few times a year. Nothing crazy. Bumper on the outside looked repainted, but that's pretty common, especially if you're, taking your car on track days and driving it here and there in the summer. So that wasn't shocking at all,
Sure. Yeah, I see a lot of cars, a couple-year-old cars with repainted bumpers. $400 or $500 now might get you $1,000 more at the auction to make sure it looks perfect when someone's buying it.
And that's kind of the name of the game, right? Put it in for a little bit of money and make more. So that doesn't not make sense, right? Interior wear looked great. I mean,
Corvettes typically do. The owners tend to be pretty gentle and take care of them, but this one looked pretty good. So, nothing crazy there. Odometer seemed reasonable. As you know, you were trying to find something under 40,000 miles and you found it.
Yeah.
The tire pressure monitor light on. I mean, who knows what that was from? Dead battery not being around, wiper blades, normal stuff we're noticing. But that battery, right? Isn't that kind of what tipped you off here? Them
So
trying to jump it.
that with the story that was provided that the guy jumped the car and it broke the clutch, but also just seeing this car graded so high at 4.7 and selling so quick. I mean, this was the first run that I ever saw this car run. I bought it, and within a week, these cars, if it's got a good battery in it, they don't have a drain that's going to kill them in, let's say, a week to 10 days time. Usually you'd have to have it sitting for a good while before the crank starts to get weak. So the fact that you got it and it was completely dead to the point where you could hardly get any, accessory power to it tells you that there was something funny going on. And that and the attitude of the seller kind of tipped me off, and that's why I sent it to you.
And let me tell you, we even tried charging this battery overnight and it took a charge, but it was still way weak. So, kind of leaving a known bad battery in there is kind of suspect, especially when the car grades so high. So,
Well, one of the good tricks that a really quality dealer likes to do is they get so many cars and batteries cost money. So what do? You take the good batteries from the good cars and you swap them for the crummy batteries. And a bad battery is not a arguable offense. Battery costs 200-300
yeah,
bucks,
it makes
and
sense.
the with the auctions, your bill has to start equaling, I think, somewhere between six and they might have upped it to $800 before they'll even start considering, going and arguing on your behalf. So the battery trick is an old one, and it's a good one when you need a quality battery. Just go grab it from one of those cars out in the lot. And
That or if you want to make sure that it takes them a little while to figure out what's going on, maybe,
sure.
Um, lights looked good. Exterior, everything was kind of there. The oil was overfilled.
Okay.
Seemed to be a bit high. I mean, we're way over here, so we were guessing maybe that was about a quart over.
Okay.
But that wasn't like the craziest thing, obviously. Coolant looked good, brake fluid, all the fluids look good, except for that clutch fluid.
Yeah.
And we noticed that the clutch fluid, same, had a remote bleeder, which again, that's a great thing to have on a race car, especially when they get hot. You can bleed out some of the fluid. Some of those are known to have issues if you're getting those systems hot. So that, seeing the remote bleeder wasn't a big telltale thing on there, but being that it came in with a dead clutch, it started making us wonder, is it something related to this remote bleeder? Did something happen? Is this new? Was this in there? Did someone play with this? Who knows?
Does the Corvette share the clutch fluid and brake fluid reservoir? Or does it have two separate?
No, the clutch fluid's actually separate on its own.
Separate. And so that bleeder was for the clutch fluid then?
Correct. Yes.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, we don't really know because as soon as you told me that this thing had the wrong engine in it, I told you don't spend too much time on it. But yeah,
and that was kind of
yeah.
fighting the want to go ahead and bleed it out, especially with the clutch fluid being as dirty. But we held back on it, not bleeding it out. But
yeah, and when you when you start adding accessories like this, you just add one more failure point. So who knows if something was loose down there? It could have been anything, but the fact that it was driving, then not, and the fact that it had a complete swap at one point, it could have been last month or it could have been last year. Who knows? And then you saw that fluid was dirty, so who knows if they even swapped it. So this is something I noticed you put in the report about the brakes, and that was something that wasn't obvious in the auction photos, but those look like the Z06 calipers, but you're telling me that the discs were the wrong discs, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's not the end of the world, because maybe he raced him and wanted to throw something that he could more easily replace.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you're paying for Z06 prices every
Hmm.
single time, and you know they're going to go through them just as fast as anything else, we often see that on race cars. So that's not, crazy, but it was something to take note of, especially if it was a high ranking car. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, that's I believe that was here. The way
Well,
these
and
were.
and I bought cars from a specific car I remember from the auction, a BMW X6M, and those have the really nice, like I think six pistons up front, and they had completely
Yep.
grabbed those off and stuck a regular set of X5 brake calipers on it because I'm guessing they were a direct fit, and so I've seen that where they'll grab these brake upgrades because people like them, people want them. And when you're trading a car into a
Hope no
dealership
one will
that has
notice.
no clue, they just made themselves an extra whatever, $800 grabbing off parts
Yeah.
like brake
And
calipers. So
and then you could just kind of wipe your hands clean of it and say we didn't know. It was like
sure,
that when we got it. Um, Left rear wheel bearing shaking. You know, kind of a wear and tear of some track day events. Wasn't like crazy, but it was something we noticed. Tire edges. I mean, what do I keep saying? Track day car. These are
sure,
very evident of that, which I'm sure you're buying an auction car. You're not afraid to have to put a set of tires on it, but
exactly.
they were driven like it was supposed to be, I suppose. Um, and then basically everything else checked out until we noticed this bolt in the back that was kind of just hanging
Hmm.
through. And it went into the rear trunk area. And this was drilled out. And what that tipped us off to noticing too was that the rear bumper, which I got videos of, and not in this inspection here, but I got videos of the bumper being painted over. Hit a purple bumper on a black car. So that led us to some sort of work had been done. And, um, maybe it looked like it was done pretty well, but they left a few things that weren't just quite perfect.
Sure.
And, again, tale of what what could happen, but the big thing, and that was last on here, and first thing I called you about was though it was more than those engine covers missing. I mean,
Sure.
this is a LS3 as far as we could tell from the block markings and the cylinder head markings, and not you know the motor that comes in a Z06, which is a problem.
Yeah, and that that's the big problem. And what do you, is that in this picture here? What do you got? Okay, so that's on the cylinder head, right?
Yes, on the cylinder head, it was hard to get the camera in to see where the one was the block. I might have gotten it on video, and when I have that, I'll throw that up. But um, yeah, that's a cylinder head off of the LS3. So if you punch that in to Google, you'll see that's pretty common. Then this is the you could see the line here that I was talking about for the clutch and
Yes.
the clutch fluid reservoir separately here, and how black that is, especially if you compare it to the brake reservoir, which is really clean right next to it. So, you know, something happened there, or someone forgot to do it, or I don't know what, but I did not let my curiosity get the best of me. But that engine is not supposed to be in a Z06.
And the big thing I think that we wanted to really show and let everybody know, because a lot of people are in the market for a Z06, for a special car like this, and this is happening more and more as these cars age and as they transact through auctions and as they're traded into unsuspecting dealers. And I think one thing you mentioned right off the bat, without even looking at the cylinder head, numbers. You said this intake looks different. And if you, I'm going to ask you to put it up on your screen. You could grab a picture, and I didn't realize it, but the intake on the Z06, just in photos, you can see there's a pattern difference it's a plastic intake on both cars from the factory, it looks like, but there's just like a shape to each section on the Z06 versus the LS3. But you had mentioned that there's maybe a size difference.
Yeah, on the intake manifold, runners for an LS3 obviously are taking in a less amount of air for their cylinder heads and the displacement of the motor. So, 7 liters versus the 6.2. The runners are a little bit bigger and they have a more square, flat appearance to them. And, it's just something that looks more, I don't know, bulky, looks more robust when you open the hood and you see it sitting in that engine cover. And this looked very small, even without the engine covers on there. So that was kind of a giveaway, but that was before we even looked at the numbers or anything else. And, we had to verify even after that, but it looked like the wrong intake manifold right when you told me people are switching these motors out. And I was like, uh-oh,
Well, if you can't bring your car to fluid, at least use this video. OJ's got a lot of great photos and video to show you what this has the potential to look like. And we say potential because technically a lot of these LS engines, LS2, LS3, let's say, and even the truck versions of these engines have very similar footprints, don't they? So technically you could chuck a handful of different General Motors. I'm saying this, you got to confirm, but I'm assuming you could chuck a handful of different General Motors engines in the engine bay in one of these Corvettes and probably get things to fit and have a stock-like appearance. Is that fair?
I mean, they were an intake manifold away and maybe, some covers and stuff from like really even having us fooled because honestly, even the power levels, this car clearly had some aftermarket parts. It had a balancer pulley. So, not too much, but that wouldn't be weird on a performance minded track build, that especially with the bleeder and all that. So we would have looked past that. But had it not had those small intake runners, it's not something I'd even be thinking to look for is, hey, do the cylinder heads match up to a Z06? It was those intake runners that really kind of gave it away. And then you started looking at more and more stuff going, oh, that's not the right exhaust manifold. That's not the right. Oh, look at these numbers on this. Oh, this is a little different. And even the power, if you think about it, you mod these things correctly and you're probably in that 500 horsepower range that the C6s were in with a camshaft on an LS3, and the right sort of mods. You're probably pretty close where you'd be hard pressed to tell that like this thing's not feeling the same as a Z06, you could just think any number of reasons why it may have a little bit different performance, but it'd be hard for most people to tell.
Could you imagine what she just said too? Is just amazing. Think about how much longer it would have taken you to figure out that if the engine covers were on the car, how much longer would it have taken you to figure out? Because say that it was the difference. I called you, we had our first conversation in the evening. It sounded like you were closing up for the day. We were planning on looking at it, virtually the next day, let's say. And that difference in a day or not, to me as an auction buyer, is the difference in being able to arbitrate the car and not.
Oh yeah.
So it's just amazing, and we got lucky that they didn't spend what they could have probably went and bought from a parts breaker off of a Z06, $300 to $500, and really hit this thing with just a set of LS7 engine covers. So again,
Yeah,
lucky
and they
on
could have
this
had it,
one.
like I said, all but your, biggest Corvette fans who are really making sure this thing's going to be numbers matching would be fooled at least at first look to believing like, hey, this car is what it should be. This is a great deal. This is a great buy, which it turned out not being so much.
No, no. Well, and that's why, again, I sent it to you, OJ. And Look, I thank you very much. Like I said, if you can't bring it to OJ, then you need to pop open those engine covers, check all the things that OJ has shown you in this video. Make sure if you're buying a Z06, that's really a Z06.
We're just finishing up doing the inspection after discovering that this thing does not have the factory 7-liter engine block in here. And now that we've talked to Sam, we're going to have to present the information. We're making sure we've got all our I's dotted and our T's crossed when we have this inspection, due to the nature of that situation for Sam. He's going to need it well documented. So anything we found earlier, we're going back over, making sure that we have picture evidence and documentation. That way, when he goes to present it and when he brings the car back, he'll have record and they'll have new records too, and everything should match up nicely, hopefully. I feel like if it's working, they're going to be like, nothing's wrong with it. It's like, it's fine. It's a Corvette engine. What are you complaining about?
Corvette, yeah.
You got to keep it. They never said it had the original engine in it. They just said it was a good deal on a Z06 body, which, I mean, could be argued, right? Could just be like, oh, we didn't know what engine was in it.
I mean,
It's
yeah.
modified. We said it was modified.
Oh, man.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Yeah, it's a modified car. It's got a modified engine in it. It's a D-stroker
Classic
kit.
modification of
It's
a smaller engine.
Smaller engine, more RPM, right? Less weight. Apparently the car was running when the transport company went to pick it up, and then they had the issue shortly after trying to get it picked up. So we're not going to try to fix anything. I don't really want to bleed the clutch out, the hydraulic system, because I think something's wrong in there, but at the same time, if we correct it or fix it, it could make the process harder to figure out for him to arbitrate. So we really just want to make sure that the engine's still running, maybe see how it sounds, so that way we know it's not a complete disaster, and have the most thorough documentation we can and make sure we're getting that back as soon as possible. What could have happened that caused the engine not to be in it anymore, you know? That's kind of the worrying thing, is like, did they do something? Did they misshift? Is there more damage in the transmission?
Yeah.
Was it in a front end or rear end wreck or something that made something worse? It's hard to say, because everything looks better than I'd imagine it looking for a car with a different engine and 40,000 track miles on it, you know? Not track
And it's
miles,
all
but
together, so like with the clutch not working, there's got to be a bad reason it's not working. Not just that it's not blood. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and it's probably better that we're not going to be able to answer them all, other than the big one, which is this isn't the original engine. So there you have it. A Z06 that's not quite a Z06. We uncovered a laundry list of surprises with Sam's Corvette, but the big one, it's rocking an LS instead of the mighty LS7 it's supposed to have. For a regular car buyer, this could have been a costly oversight, but thankfully, Sam's no stranger to auction surprises. Now, here's the takeaway. Not everyone's going to have tools or the experience to catch these kind of issues before it's too late. That's why bringing your car to a shop like Fluid MotorUnion can be the difference between a great deal or a regret-filled disaster. We've got the knowledge, the experience, and the tools to spot things others might miss. So what do you think? Would you have caught an engine swap like that on your own? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And of course, if you liked what you saw today, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more car stories that'll save you from making a costly mistake. Until next time, stay sharp, stay informed, and keep those engines purring.